Hi, welcome back everyone. We're getting ready to kick off the second part of tonight's session, and we're going to have a panel discussion with these three experts over here, but before that we have some brief recorded remarks from Taiwanese Minister Chen Yuan-dong. He's the Minister of the Overseas Community Affairs Council since 2020, and previously he was Taiwan's ambassador to Thailand, senior advisor at the National Security Council, and spokesman of the Executive Yuan. So with that, I guess they'll roll the video and then we'll start the panel afterwards.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm very pleased and grateful that Director General Daniel Chen of the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office in Seattle was able to demonstrate decisive action and leadership in planning and organizing this important meeting on high technology cooperation between Taiwan and the United States within just 3 months. We know that Taiwan and the United States have been important economic and trade partnership for decades. They mutually play complementary roles, with Taiwan possessing a well-established digital technology industry supply chain, while the United States has advanced capabilities for the development of high technology and massive international market. Therefore, Taiwanese companies in related industries are keen for opportunities to cooperate with the United States companies. Our Taiwanese American business owners can be an important bridge to enhance partnership between these two countries. Around 4,000 Taiwanese-owned businesses have set down roots and prospered in the United States for decades. They have shown strong interest and willingness to assist Taiwanese companies and American companies to connect with each other in both directions in any way they can. I sincerely hope through today's meeting to see rapid further promotion of ever closer connection and extensive cooperation between Taiwan and the United States. Finally, I wish today's meeting very success and all attendees good luck, health, and happiness. Thank you very much for your attention.
Welcome, everyone. I want to start off by giving each of you an introduction. Here we have Tony Yang. He's the Technical Director of the Next Generation Communication Technology Office of the Information and Communication Research Laboratories at the Industrial Technology Research Institute. Next to him, we have Chong Yu Feng. He's the General Manager of BU6 at the Pegatron Corporation, where he runs networking, telecommunications, Internet of Things affairs, and the wearable devices product series. And then finally, we have Jeffrey Yan. He's the Director of Technology Policy at Microsoft Corporation, and he's working on examining disruptive technology trends with policy implications and societal impacts. So welcome all three of you to the stage. So to get started, I was going to have each of you just sort of give an introduction to maybe your company or your position, what you're working on, and taking in mind what Minister Gong was talking about with digital transformation. Maybe in your role, are there particular technologies you're working on that are driving digital transformation? I guess we can start with you.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Doc. I am Tony Yang from the E3 Industrial Technology Research Institute. E3 is a big family. We have 11 research labs. I work for ICL, Information and Communication Labs. In past 3 years, our team have been engaged in 5G technology and application development. It's my honor to be here to do more discussion about the Taiwan open RAN ecosystem. I hope you can understand Taiwan capabilities more. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. My name is Siwai Fan, and I work for Pegatron many years. You can see my gray hair. So Pegatron is a company dedicated on the design manufacturing for computer consumer communication products. And I would say that in 2021, consolidated revenue is around 47 billion. So pretty much we have worldwide very complete manufacturing footprints. So you can imagine that when Doug mentioned about digital transformation, that's very important for Pegatron whole company strategy, especially based on the next generation communication technology. So thanks for Tom that's from Microsoft that's mentioned about Pegatron a few times. And that's the project we work with Microsoft, especially for the digital resilience. And you can imagine that sometimes we, in some area or even in Pegatron facility, we have some disaster emergent issue happens. We do not have right ground communication, and we need some very high reliable communication system. So we work with Microsoft side, come up with the idea to combine 5G, ground communication, and satellite, so that to make sure a very reliable and high performance communication system when the disaster happens. So on the other hand, you can imagine that based on our Pegatron worldwide footprints, we are going to put 5G technology into our smart factories. I should say that we will put 5G technology into our factory and become the basis of the smart factory. So we are going to work with our partners. As a matter of fact, we work very closely with Intel, Microsoft, and like a Qualcomm, Marvell, lots of the US partners. We're trying to set up a very huge network, especially based on the 5G technology network. So that's we are going to work with our partner together is to make sure we can set up all of this basis for the future digital transformation. Then we can do the next. So I think that we will work on lots of partner and also the local telco companies. And like in Taiwan, Zhonghua Telecom definitely needs our partner. So I think that's pretty much our I would say the path to the digital transformation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeff Yan. I come from a local small startup called Microsoft. We're really honored to be invited here. And we are pretty well known in the past for being a software company. And some, in events like this, some people will ask, what's Microsoft doing here? You're not even a telecom person or company, which is quite true in the past because we were, like I said, a small software startup to begin with. But with the transition to cloud, now that we call ourselves a cloud company, we have everything to do with telecom now, because without the telecommunication networks, there is no cloud, or the cloud will be just really literally cloud up in the sky. It wouldn't land as a service. So in the sense that cloud for us, the 5G, 6G transition, the whole development of telecommunication networks is a huge enabler for cloud computing. Now, conversely, we also believe cloud computing is the key enabler of the new generation of wireless network like 5G or 6G. Without cloud computing, 5G or 6G wouldn't be a reality either, including the topic that we discussed today, like O-RAN. And that's because for the first time, I think, the telecom network has it's been undergoing a very fundamental shift from a very closed system to now be a very open distributed system. And that really requires a lot of cloud computing facilitation and technology and business model for that matter. So we see ourselves not only a beneficiary of 5G, 6G development, but we are also a huge enabler for this big transition. And we have later on we'll talk about see what has mentioned about the collaboration that we have been doing utilizing the Microsoft solutions with Pegatron's hardware and devices. I think overall what excites me is that 5G and 6G represents a huge opportunity for the Taiwanese ICT industry, which traditionally has been limited to being maybe contract manufacturing. But now with this, it opened up a huge opportunity and for us as well. So therefore, I see a lot of opportunity for collaboration.
Great. Thank you all. So I'm going to start out with some questions, but for the audience, I want you all to keep in mind, we want this to be interactive and use this as an opportunity to engage with our visitors from Taiwan. So after a few questions from me, if anyone in the audience has questions, please start thinking about these now, and I'm happy to turn it over to you shortly. So with that, Tony, you were talking about your work on 5G and Open RAN. Could you talk about the current situation of these in Taiwan and what Taiwan's development strategy is for these?
Thank you, Doc. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to introduce 5G progress in Taiwan. The first I would like to say the development in Taiwan is more aggressive than 5G before, because we have all operator in Taiwan. We have a 5 operator. All operator in Taiwan have launched 5G services since 2020. And the spectrum for private 5G will be released in the second half of this year. So the entity in Taiwan can apply for local 5G spectrum to do internal use and or public service. So there are a lot of 5G application will be implemented in Taiwan. And regarding the Open RAN, I think at my understanding, there are more than 15 Taiwanese companies involved in Open RAN system development. And I know, and we have one ORAN certified testing lab in Taiwan since June last year. This lab also do security testing also. So I think Taiwan we have a complete Open RAN system. It's more easier for U.S. industry to cooperate with Taiwan companies. I would like to say that Taiwan is a one-stop Open RAN provider country. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So, is that okay? Jeffrey, I want to jump over to you, and then I'll come back to you, CY, with the follow-up question. Here. Hello? Yeah. Maybe mine is running out of batteries. So, Jeffrey, your team at Microsoft examines long-term disruptive technology trends. And hearing Tony talk about 5G, 6G, and Open RAN, what type of disruptions do you expect to see these technologies unlock in the future? And what do you think these technologies will really improve, and what parts of them will gain broad usage? And here, I'll give you your.
All right. Yeah, these days, hardly, almost everything is a disruption, the COVID being a big one. But when it comes to 5G, 6G, the way we see it, it's certainly a technological disruption, but more so, I would say it's more of a cultural disruption. And the reason I say it is this is where we see the closed telecom system meets the open internet. And that's why I say it's a cultural disruption, because the internet culture, the way the system and applications are being developed, the way the networks interconnect with each other is rather different than the traditional telecom world. And 5G and 6G, arguably, if you compare the 3G, 4G evolution, which is arguably predominantly a air interface upgrade, which is really an evolution. There's not much change architecturally in the network. But come 5G, there's a huge, I call it paradigm shift in terms of network architecture, that what used to be closed, a very tightly integrated software hardware bundle provided by a few telecom vendors, which are very prone, and I'm sure companies like CHT is very experienced with, is very prone to vendor locking because the system is so much integrated. But the biggest disruption, in my opinion, would be now that system, both in the core network and in the RAN, are opened up for a more sort of modularized and distributed architecture. And that means no longer a big boys game. Small companies or component vendors, which Taiwan is really excellent at, can now play a much bigger role, not only just a contract manufacturer, not just a component or IC provider, but rather a solution and even end-to-end provider. But honestly, I think what Minister Gong mentioned earlier today is that Taiwan, relatively speaking, is weak in the software power or software experience, and the fact that distributed architecture does require a lot of software as the glue to still keep all the distributed component together. And I think that's where Microsoft comes in with our software experience, with the cloud platform, which does the orchestration layer of the different components. And I think that's why we actually really excited, part of the reason driven all the collaboration we have with ITRI, with Pegatron, is that we are really, really complementary in our core competence. And the disruption really represents opportunity for companies like ours, and I think for cooperation between US and Taiwan, for that matter.
Great, thank you. So CY, that sets me up perfect, as I wanted to ask you more about the US-Taiwan cooperation in these sort of emerging technologies in the ICT field. I had seen that Pegatron recently announced an additional $50 million of investment on top of the already significant planned investment in the US. So could you talk about what this investment's purpose is and what's driving this investment for Pegatron to invest in the US?
Okay, that's, wow. I think that one, of course, that's a very customer-oriented, okay, because you can see in the future some major technology and also corresponding products will need quite strong local support. And this kind of local services, including the manufacturing and also technology services. So that, for example, that's 5G or beyond 5G, or EV, or high computing products, that all this kind of the technologies strongly need local support for the manufacturing and also technologies. So for all this investment, pretty big portion will be kind of the customer-oriented investment. Then that's to make sure that we can cross the market and we can make sure that, our available customers is fully with very satisfied services. That's definitely one of the key points. And on the other hand, I would very strongly align with just Tom mentioned about Microsoft, CEO mentioned about tech intensity. Okay, so that's also after our evaluation, we truly believe that all of this future technology that we need to have a very strong relationship with our US partner. So just again, like Intel, Microsoft, we definitely need to have the close local team to work together. So not only the manufacturing side, but also we are going to invest more for the technology cooperation and also some other services for our customers, but also some other activities with our partners.
Thank you. And I was researching your organizations and companies and saw that all three of you are collaborating in different ways. So Tony, maybe if I come back to you, I saw ITRI and Pegatron were jointly working on a 5G O-RAN end-to-end energy saving control system, which can be used in smart factories, hospitals, and entertainment venues. Could you talk about what that means, what this technology is, and how you guys are working together, and what this is achieving? Oh, or either of you.
By the way, I modified Jeffrey a little bit the comments because we got our very close friend from Foxconn, from Combo, and also Pegatron. All these companies are not small. we're pretty. Okay. Anyway, so I think that back to the first question that Don, you mentioned about digital transformation. I believe all of these technologies come the same way, driven by these digital transformations. So I think that 5G is a technology is driving for the digital transformation, but on the other hand, digital transformation requirements also make the 5G or the other new technology move faster. So it's kind of the quite a necessity to overall industrial to make that happen. So for example, that in these 2 years, because of pandemic, you can see that's quite strong communication tools and also collaboration solution. All of this happened in just 2 years. Before, probably we need to take around 10 years, even more, to make them happen. So right now, digital transformation definitely will be the one, just like Mr. Gong mentioned, that definitely is the one most driving force to make all of this happen in this direction. Yes.
I think the CY is too humble to answer this question. I think I usually cooperate with Pegatron to develop the energy saving system for Open RAN. We just got the award from the Small Cell Forum 2022 prize. So the system we design is to control the RAN system. And we know most of the power consumption is from the base station. Most of the telecom power consumption from base station. So if you would like to meet a carbon-free target by 2025, so we try to monitor the data traffic from the base station and the terminal device. And so in the private network, we can shut down some base station. During the off-peak time period. And of course, the base station can be auto power up or turn on, auto turn on to meet the capacity demand and application requirement. This system is controlled from the radio intelligent interface. This is standardized from the Orange Alliance. We totally follow this specification to deny our operating system. Thank you.
So just so I understand, is that artificial intelligence based then? So it's monitoring the data flows and it regulates whether it's on or off depending on data flows?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. And that you were talking about base stations. Director General Chun was also talking about some collaboration on low Earth orbit satellites, I believe, between Microsoft and Pegatron. Could you guys talk about what you're using that technology for? Either of you?
Always defer to CY first. I'll add to that.
Okay. No. So I think that's because Taiwan is a very special environment. You know that we have a Hsinchu Technology Industry Park and TSMC, all of these famous companies located in that area. But unfortunately, Taiwan's we have quite some nature issue. For example, the typhoon, earthquake, quite a lot of that stuff. And so very beginning it's come up, we need kind of a solution to make sure something happen without normal communication system. We still can keep everything going. So that's with Microsoft's idea, and we come up by using portable 5G devices with satellites together, which means that if the ground communication is not available, that we still can have this portable device move around and very efficiently to the location and connect with the satellite to make sure high reliable communication happen. So in this overall application, you can imagine that 5G O-RAN definitely is one of the key. And on the other hand, we need to integrate a lot of things into a small portable device. For example, that we need to put the 5G core network inside this small device, and we need to put on the CU, DU, hold the protocol stack into, and we need to have a kind of the small solution, quite a lot for the hardware side. Then we can come out reasonable portable devices. So that's pretty much we can bring on for the system. On the other hand, with this kind of portable 5G system, we still need to connect with the satellite. And this satellite can link up with, for example, Microsoft Azure database. Then all of this need to be communicate smoothly. And so there, Microsoft also have technologies named Edge device to do the SDN management for the remote side and also the cloud side to make sure all of this communication goes through smoothly and the configuration is easy. So that's a pretty complicated. I'm not so sure. I'm not so very technical guy, but it's a very complicated environment. But you need to make it very flexible and easy configurable. So then definitely into the cloud that will come to Microsoft area. So pass to Jeffrey.
Yeah. So if I may add to that, I think this is a perfect example of how 5G and cloud enables collaboration across different industry segments, which otherwise may not even come together. So in this case, with Pegatron, with Microsoft, and with SES, with the satellite company, Together, we put it's not a pure 5G solution, it's not a pure cloud solution, but it's just a amalgamation of different technology elements. And many of you, I bet most of you don't know that Microsoft actually has a fairly new business unit we call Azure Space. And we're not competing with NASA, just to be clear, but we are bringing cloud computing to the space. As part of Azure Space, we have a subunit called Azure Orbital, which what it does is you can consider ground station for the satellite communication. The ground station is a key element, which happen to be a very expensive, very complicated system. Now, not every enterprise or organization would like to build one, but now with cloud computing, you turn that ground station into a service. So what we call the ground station as a service. That's just one example of how the cloud is democratizing complicated technologies like supercomputers, or in this case, satellite communication, to almost every enterprise, even small and medium enterprise. In this case, we're not utilizing the ground station just yet. It is simply a satellite antenna, receiving as the backup backhaul for the emergency communication. But this shows you that how the cloud, as I mentioned earlier, does the orchestration layer that binds different elements together to make a more holistic and more resilient solution. And the other thing, if I may want to add, is what Tony mentioned earlier about how you're able to reduce the power consumption. I think that's another great example of how an open architecture allows you now to actually, different innovators and companies to work on different components of the overall 5G ecosystem and find ways that which otherwise in the old days any telecom vendor would not allow you to access that level of data. The operators wouldn't allow you to do that either. But now I think in the 5G paradigm, you almost have an API into every component of the network where developers can develop new and innovative solutions that the telcos itself may not even think of. But once it develops, it becomes either OPEX saving in this case or a new revenue stream. So I think that's, going back to your earlier question, into disruption, and I think that developer ecosystem, which Microsoft has kind of grew up with, like we are a platform company, we are a ecosystem company, and I think we're bringing that spirit, that experience to the 5G ecosystem and to the benefit of both the telcos and also the industry, like Foxconn and Pegatron, all the big companies. Thanks for correcting me.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from the audience? I'd be happy to take any if there are. Oh, yes, over here.
So the online people can hear you.
Alrighty. My name is Ulysses. I come from the Quanta Cloud Technology. I have two questions I would like to learn from the Microsoft Jeffrey, if I may. So my first question is that I would like to echo that you mentioned about 5G open architecture so that we can have the possibility to bring the software recipes into the communication world. So when we are having the software into the communication world, that means we can have the more complexity problems using the software ways to deal with it. When we're talking about these aggregations, after these aggregations, it will comes from the automations. So I would like to understand how does the Microsoft as a software company, how do you foresee the role of the automations into the open RAN or open architectures world? That's my first question. And my second question is that we always know that AT&T and Microsoft is a very good successful case that the cloud service providers work with the telco operators. But I believe there might be some, I use the confrontations or the challenges when we want to blend the ITs into the communication world. So I was wondering if you can share some of the examples to us and how you deal with this. Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, thank you for the really good questions. I'm actually afraid that this is going to be out of my depth, but I will try my best. And simply because CY and I actually, we just realized we are colleagues from Nortel Networks from a long time ago. So I did come from the old telecom world. And I was talking to Guozong from CHT, that I used to work with CHT very closely as well. So sort of borrowing from that, my older experience, even though I don't have as much gray hair as CY, the way I will answer two of your questions, first of all, I think the fact that we disintegrated the 5G network architecture does bring a new challenge, meaning it used to be a closed system and you literally guarded with walls, right? The central office, nobody can get in, nobody can get near. And therefore, there's a lot of security around. But now all the network components are distributed literally globally. There's a lot of risk points where security issues like hackers can get in. So one of the amalgamation sort of need or protection is how do you protect an open architecture without compromising the security, the 5G security. So all of a sudden, I think the 5G security is a much bigger issue than the older 4G, 3G network, simply because it's now distributed and multi-vendor environment rather than a single vendor. And that's where why I think Open RAN has a huge dependency on cloud, both at the in the core and at the edge, because you need the cloud orchestration to make sure that every step, including even the supply chain, your supply chain, where you acquire those components from, need to satisfy all the security certification policies, and in operation, your cloud orchestration layer need to be able to orchestrate that security policy so that every element in that chain adhere to that policy. So I'm almost at the end of my depth. I'm no longer that technical anymore. So that's hopefully answer your first question in some ways. The second question was, with AT&T. So our good friend from AT&T. That was a big, I would say, let me put it this way, that's a big bomb to the telecom industry, to the telecom world. It's like, what? AT&T sold its soul to Microsoft? That's literally one of the journalist articles said, when AT&T agreed to let Microsoft run its core 5G core network, not just its IT infrastructure, it's very heart of the AT&T network now will be run by Microsoft Azure network. And we went to the extent the integration is not just a commercial contract. We went to the extent of integrating the team from AT&T, I think over 150 engineers that invented and built that core network infrastructure into Microsoft. So now they become part of Microsoft Azure organization, Azure for operators. And the common vision, again, is that both AT&T and us believe that's the future of telecom. It needs to be cloud native. And we believe so strongly that the set of the cloud native core network capability can be made in such a way that not only AT&T can rely on it, every telco in the world, and I hope CHT will take a look into it as well, can actually benefit from this cloud native core packet core network. And that's just one part of the puzzle. I think the cloud driven or cloud assisted Open RAN is another example. So now you have core being cloud native, distributed, and then you have Open RAN. So all of a sudden, from a telco point of view, you no longer need to just buy equipment from one or two or maybe just three vendors, and then you're locked in. You have no other choices because that vendor's RAN only work with that vendor's packet core. There's no open interface. But with O-RAN, now you can, in fact, pick and choose the best of breeds from components. And then that literally is many more choices in terms of supply chain diversification, in terms of and you think of the geopolitics of national security, that you can certainly afford to not choose certain vendors. Let me put it that way, right? So that's kind of a long answer to your excellent question. I hope I answers to some extent.
Yeah, thank you. Do either of you have anything to add to that, or you don't need to? But if you do, I wanted to offer you the opportunity. Okay. Any other? Yes, a question back there. Oh, from the internet, from the virtual audience. Are you going to ask that, or? Oh, okay, great.
Hi, can everybody hear me? Thank you. Thank you very much. This is Sang Chong Fu from Pacifian. And I do have a question regarding the 5G. 5G has the sub 10 gigahertz and also the millimeter wave of segments. So we know that the millimeter wave part actually require a lot of investment into it, but it actually also opened the possibility, very good possibility for the future, including the imaging in the future as well. Also pave the road for the 6G. So I would like to understand that from Microsoft's point of view, what kind of application beyond the communication can be expected from this one, and what's the expectation from the software side, or maybe a big leader, technical tech leader like Microsoft today? Thank you.
I'm not sure if I understand the question completely. You're asking about millimeter wave and what
Yes,
innovation comes out of it?
Yes, yes. Specifically on the millimeter wave, because that's also associated challenges on the 5G millimeter wave part. And of course, there's a lot of investment required. And beyond that, 6G also rely on that.
Okay. Again, I hope my colleagues here can help me, because it's beginning to really out of, at the rim of where my knowledge is. But I happen to also handle the spectrum policy for Microsoft in certain range. So a lot of current 5G developments are in the mid-band, and particularly here in US. That's why there's a lot of debate on the C-band, because that's really the golden spectrum, not too high, not too low. But when it comes to millimeter wave band, it's a sort of newer frontier. There's a lot more spectrum available, but more challenging in terms of the range and other things. But my view, and certainly Microsoft we're not really the strongest in terms of the spectrum, because we don't really buy or use spectrum directly, but we do believe the millimeter wave band is very important for things like, the short range communication, either indoor or maybe to the, from like, I believe a good friend of Facebook or Meta now called it, they do this thing called telegraph, which is from the telephone post to the building, so that kind of short range. So there's a lot of newer application, or in the other thing I should really mention is the AR, VR world, where Microsoft has these things called HoloLens, and many other companies have similar products. That will also require a lot of really high bandwidth, but short range communication, which I believe millimeter wave band is very suitable for it. And one last thing to mention, not to risk too much of my boundary of my knowledge, is that it's not just 5G or 6G. Like millimeter wave band is also a huge application for unlicensed technology like Wi-Fi. So you have 60 gigahertz WiGig, which utilize the millimeter wave band, and it's available today. You don't actually need to wait for 6G. Wi-Fi, in our view, Wi-Fi it's a very important and very complementary technology to the 5G, 6G cellular technology. And we believe in the enterprise world, especially, Siwa and I were just discussing that, there could be a very good combination of the two type of technology, both utilizing certain bands to provide, in total, provide much better connectivity in terms of throughput, latency, and I guess quality of service overall. Siwa, I hope, Tony, any of you want to add to that?
So millimeter wave does make the 5G characteristics even more clear. I mean, it's no matter from high bandwidth and low latency, and can adapt for a huge connection. So that's millimeter wave definitely make all of these characteristics come up to another level. But so from technology-wise, we do believe millimeter wave should be the right direction to move on. And of course, that's because of that. Definitely all technology, including the hardware, software, will work in that direction. So that's for sure. But at this moment, millimeter wave still compared with the sub-6, that's it's more expensive, and of course that's right now to our application really need for the millimeter wave probably not so obvious. So because of that, I think that we haven't pushed our current cost-effective power solution to meet the requirement for the millimeter wave. So I think that still needs some gap. Otherwise, if we make the millimeter wave happens from today's technology, that definitely can be done without any problem. But unfortunately, that related to cost, everything probably not so affordable. So so I think that once we push for that direction, and I believe the hardware side definitely need to be modified. On the other hand, I believe soft side probably need to do some modification, some modify as well. So I think that's my opinion.
I told a joke. Some people say the millimeter wave is a true 5G because he have a lot of bandwidth and low latency. He can meet he can meet the IMT 2020 standard. But we have a lot of technical challenge to have to be recovered to solve. But some application running on millimeter wave, we have a lot of application test field. As Jeffrey said, some application like the AR/VR or AMR with the AR camera and the AOI in manufacturing. So some have a lot, some application need high capacity bandwidth and low latency. I think we have to use millimeter wave to achieve it. But we need some innovation application to be developed more.
Yeah, thank you all for your responses there. We're running low on time, but I guess I tend to approach these things more from a policy angle, and I'm not as in the weeds in the tech aspects. So I wanted to maybe wrap it up with another question on U.S.-Taiwan cooperation. When you're looking at the policies of both countries and sort of the innovation strategy and tech policy, are there certain areas where the policies line up and really facilitate cooperation on certain technologies? And are there other areas that are maybe less easy to cooperate on or could use some policy improvements to better facilitate cooperation on certain technologies? And if so, I'm just curious about like what technologies or what areas of cooperation really work well.
Well, I'll start. I do wear like a policy hat. I'm more like half cup full type of person, so I would say more of the ample areas for policy collaboration between U.S. and Taiwan. And I know there have been ongoing collaboration or exchange of information of best practice between the Federal Communications Commission with the National Communications Commission, FCC and NCC. and maybe Jiaotongbu as well, right? The one area I certainly think, given our topic is 5G, 6G, is definitely spectrum policy. And FCC, I have to give a lot of credit to FCC, the US regulator, being at the forefront of a lot of spectrum innovation. I think if you think back 1980s, when FCC first opened up unlicensed access to Wi-Fi band at 2.4 gigahertz at that time, everyone thought that was just garbage band, right? It was just like left over. Nobody really wants it, so let's give it to the industrial science and those experiments. It turns out, 20 years down the road, how big, we all know, and I don't want to quote numbers, but it's billions and billions of Wi-Fi devices and hundreds of different kind of innovation, and Wi-Fi itself becomes such a complement to the 3G, 4G world in terms of, for example, cellular offloading, in terms of the indoor coverage. So I think that is a good example of how the regulator, how policy actually allowed innovation to happen unexpectedly, right? Nobody really predicted the success of Wi-Fi. And in the same way, I think the Federal Communications Commission did a great job in opening up federal spectrums like CBRS, the Citizen Broadband services. That really is another brave step forward, I would say, because you're dealing with the military. And who dare to share or request the military to say, well, share your bandwidth with me, because that's national security and everything. But I think both DOD, the Department of Defense, and FCC and NTIA, the federal administrator for the federal spectrum, they did a really brave and really innovative job by opening up that the Navy radar spectrum for civil usage by way of what they call the AFC, right, the Automated Frequency Coordination database. So that's how you use a technology to solve a really complicated, somewhat political sort of dilemma there, because you definitely don't want to mess with the Navy, right? But you also don't want the spectrum to sit there idle for most of the time. And the success, I think is still at the beginning stage, but I think the growing success of CBRS is another example of how the policy has actually allowed really good innovation. And now that's a very US specific, but I think other countries are looking at a similar approach. So I would highly commend FCC and recommend NCC to kind of have same kind of philosophy towards spectrum sharing, for example, because ultimately we talk a lot about sustainability today, right? I would say the spectrum as a resource in itself has a huge sustainability challenge. Because if we continue to do the way we managed spectrum in the past, we are already running it out. We all heard of the spectrum crunch, this notion. But we do believe with sharing and with dynamic access, for example, the spectrum is an infinite resource. You can't really exhaust it as long as you use it smartly. So, and that requires our governments, our regulators to really be innovative there. Yeah.
Okay, I will pretty much, sorry, I will pretty much take another view for product development side. Because at this moment that I believe that all this 5G or beyond 5G technology definitely need kind of the using our US partners strong technology-wise, but also need Taiwanese company like Pegatron or even Guangda, Fastcom, combos that development efforts to come up with overall system. So I strongly fear that when we develop all this kind of products, because of the spectrum restriction, there is quite some difficulty move the products or move the environment around, And it's, for example, that we are very difficult to have the test environment in Taiwan, and we could definitely need to come to US to do something else. And if that's just like Jeffrey mentioned, if there's FCC or NCC, they can discuss to come up kind of the sharing concept, then allow the Taiwanese company to be more flexible, to have such flexibility to let Taiwanese company to do all this development job. That definitely would be good for all the system company like Guangda, Foxconn, Combo, Picacom. Definitely that's the way. And also that would be very helpful for all the companies that intend to do this. And on the other hand, I also would like to kind of, because of this, especially like the satellite today, it's a very new area. And if US government can, for example, the FCC can put Taiwan as a kind of priority position to make the satellite services launch in Taiwan, that's and to help local Taiwan local operators to have this kind of experience to running for that, I believe definitely that will help a lot.
One moment. Okay. So did you have anything to add there real quick? Sorry.
I think I have a three suggestion for US and Taiwan cooperation. The first one is I would like because most of open 5G open system developers cooperate with US solution vendor, including the Intel, Qualcomm, maybe NVIDIA, and so on. So because the open RAN right now is in developing phase, we really, and the Taiwan industry invest a lot of in this segment. So I would like to suggest if US solution provider can provide better and competitive solution to all system vendor, it would be better for us for Taiwan industry to compete the legacy system, because right now we have a power consumption and performance issue in open RAN system. We need the US support to suffer this problem or improve this problem. This first one. The second one, I think maybe we can cooperate in application, including from the operator side. I think the 5G edge application is important because we call it's a new opportunity to telco. He can provide a distinguished application different from the OTT vendor or cloud vendor, because edge application in the near customer, he can provide the low latency and high bandwidth application to customer, so he can distinguish the application from the OTT vendor. So I think it's important for telco. So I think we can cooperate with maybe with the OTT vendor, Microsoft also. So I think including the Microsoft, AWS, even Google, they provide the edge application solution and based on your public API. I think a lot of edge application, a lot of innovation application running on your standard API. So maybe OTTs can cooperate with the operator to create new revenue. The third suggestion I would like to say, because in open RAN system, we say the certification and the integration is essential for open RAN system. So I would like to promote our Taiwan ecosystem, because right now we have a certified open learn testing lab in Taiwan. Also, if US telco can teach or guide us to do more tests regarding the we call the carrier acceptance test. We can base the operator requirement to do more test item to meet the telco expectation. It will speed our system. It speed our system to ship open LAN to telco. This is my suggestion for. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. We are over time. I think we have an audience member who's eager to ask a question. I could offer her this, and maybe if you guys could just give real quick answers, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Rita Chen. I'm on behalf of U.S. Department of Commerce. So it's our great honor to work with NDC to this town delegation to the U.S. So I just want to answer your question about the dialogue between FCC and NCC. So AIT commercial section, actually we already arranged 2-time conversation between these two parties for 2 years already. But because we are kind of on demand basis, so we received a request from US companies such as Intel, Qualcomm, and Microsoft. The two conversations in the past this year and last year was only focusing on Wi-Fi 6. So now I heard there's another issue on the 5G spectrum. So if that is the case, we need some US company to raise the issue to us. Then US government, we could step out because we could not proactively to do that kind of approach, because US is a kind of government driven. And also I like to know the reason why we organize this big delegation with all these excellent private sectors and the Taiwan key policymakers from Taiwan authorities is because we received a policy from U.S. Department of Commerce last year. We were demanded to form the binational 5G applications between U.S. and Taiwan because U.S. government think Taiwan hardware is so strong, and U.S. software is also play a key role there. And we want to form a new technology, to form a new turnkey solution, so the telecom world will not be dominated by Ericsson and Nokia anymore. So I'm hoping that after this event, or if people, you continue your trip to Select USA, you can meet lots of, you can meet a representative from 50 states, and they can tell you how to find a local partner, local SI, if you want to join their tenders locally. And of course, please partner with Microsoft and Hackathon, so to form the solution, because this is part of our AIT's mission. We want this binational solution to be exported back to the US, and when it's mature, we resell it back to ASEAN countries. And AIT, we hope you can sell them to Africa as well. There's my section chief, Brent Onda, who work in Nigeria, so he hope we could help the country as well. So if you have any question, just let us know, and it's very delighted. Oh, can I have one more question? I received some requests from US SME companies. They want to develop, sorry, my question is for Tony Itri. They want to work with Taiwan company for this new 5G, open RAN, but they don't understand, they don't know if they need to work with the SI locally. So maybe you can answer this question for all of my US clients. Thank you.
SI, Taiwan SI work with the Taiwan SI company?
Yeah, because they don't know if they can, for example, if they just, their software. And why I raise this question also because I held 2 times 5G event in AIT in Taiwan. And it's a similar US soft company, Microsoft was there, and we have a lots of people were there. And actually, the VIP from Foxconn, they asked, yeah, we love to adapt this, open RAN, but they like to have one SI to deal with multiple vendors. They don't want to, run out their energy just by contacting different vendors. So they asked me, where is the SI? And I don't know how to answer them. I can always tell them, go to Chunghwa Telecom. Or so.
I said before, but I said Pekka-san is a professional Oren SI vendor. Maybe you can add more. And I said the certification and integration is very important for Oren system. I think the first step you have to get Oren certification for each subsystem, including software. So all the software and hardware have to meet the Oren Alliance specification. This is the first step. The second step, we have to do interoperability between each subsystem. After you finish your whole system, end-to-end system, you have to send your system to telco to do the, as I said before, the carrier acceptance test. So there are three parts, and finally we have to field test in telco, and there are a lot of more testing to do in telco. So that's why I suggest maybe, if possible, because a lot of Oren vendor in Taiwan, if we can cooperate with a soft vendor from the US, they can install their software in cooperated Taiwan hardware vendor and test to certification, IoT testing, and even more the carrier acceptance in Taiwan lab directly. I think it will shorten the turnaround rate. After you finish all the tests, I think all the SI are easier to pick their partner to cooperate. And even the operator, they have a lot of different vendor and ecosystem to reduce their operation cost. That's my reply. Thanks.
Great, thank you. With that, we're well over time, so it's time to wrap it up. I want to thank the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office in Seattle once again for putting this event together. And many thanks to Tony, CY, and Jeffrey for joining this panel and sharing your insights.
Thank you, Dr.